Why do you think that local newspapers can get more appreciation for their user-generated content? It's not the same as online, but they got a lot of comment from people in the community, and I'm sure that if user-generated content was that successful, it would have helped local newspapers up to now a lot more than it has.
I think I think all of us in publishing have been far too slow to innovate on our commercial models. We've been far too, at first we hoped it would all go away. Then, secondly, because we've had print businesses that we've been worried to protect, we spend at least as much time worrying about not doing something on the web that would undercut the money coming in print. At least as much time worrying about that as worrying about how do we make this new stuff grow really well. And in fact, one of the ways around that, one thing we did early on, a big revenue stream for us has always been recruitment advertising, job ads. So if you take Computer Weekly, magazine I used to work on, in a boom, you'd have dozens of pages, up to 130 pages of job ads. In the peak, Computer Weekly was generating more than £1 million an issue on just job ads alone. A lot of money tied up in that. And so when we started to do online jobs, where people are typically paying a whole lot less per ad, for us, one of the big challenges was how do we do this without damaging all this money tied up in print? And very quickly we realised if we worry about that, we're going to be rubbish at online job ads, because we'll always have one hand tied behind our back, because we're not doing the absolute best we can on our online job search, because we're always worried about undercutting the print. And we'll be competing against pure play online who don't have that worry. So what we ended up doing was setting up our online jobs operation, Total Jobs, as a separate business, and allowed it to compete directly head-to-head with our print business. And it caused all sorts of internal arguments. But absolutely it was the right thing to do, because now it's the market leader in the UK. And we're making more money now out of online jobs than we ever did out of print jobs. Less per job, but there's a lot more jobs on it. But it took, in the end, we had to separate that off to do it. So, sorry, this is a very long-winded way of answering your question about local papers. I think local papers in particular have been very unsuccessful at innovating and being truly radical and saying, look, the future is online, we're going to have to really focus on coming up with business models that work online, user experiences that really work online. Now, my personal feeling is it's not too late for them. They've still got a relationship with their audiences, but it's getting that way, it's getting pretty late. And then on top of that, there's still the challenges that we're in a recession. So whatever your medium is you work in at the moment, even if we weren't facing this online migration, in a downturn like this, you'd still be seeing journalists lose their jobs, because it's a downturn and marketing budgets get cut and publishers depend on marketing budgets. So I think it's partly that it's just tough. Recession, new models we're struggling to find, and the novelty of this whole area, and partly that they've not been nearly innovative.
Shall I wrap it up with one last question, because I'm aware we're all out of time. But what advice would you give? Natalie is the editor of Birmingham Recycle, so she rules everyone else's lives. What advice would you give to Natalie in terms of the user-generated content strategy for basically environmental news websites around the Midlands?
Well,
nice easy question to answer.
It's tough because I don't know much about environmental issues, to be frank. But I mean, this is true for any sort of journalism. I think understand the rules. That's the first thing. Don't assume you understand them. Go out and reach out to them. So do you know where the sort of people you're trying to attract and sort of people you want to generate content on your site? Do you know where they interact now? Are there a lot of them on Twitter? Are there a lot of them on Facebook? Do they use LinkedIn? Are there forums out there in that environmental space that a lot of them are participating in? You should know that, and if you don't, that should be a priority, to understand where the audience are, and watch what they do and listen to what they're saying, listen to interaction, and use that to understand, and then start to communicate with them where they are on the topics that they're joining the conversations that are going on now, rather than you try and force them to talk about what you want them to talk about, and do it where they're communicating now, and think about what you can then do to add value to that on your own site and make them want to come and contribute to your site. It's always hard to say what to do in a particular market, because, as I said earlier on, every market is different and there's no way to shortcut that understanding of the audience. I mean, a general lesson is that where you're expecting users to play a big part and contribute a lot of the content, you need to understand that you have to give up that total ownership that we typically feel we have when it's our own publication or our own site. If you want the audience to participate, then you need to understand that to make that work, you need to allow them to feel it's theirs, not just to feel, but it to be genuinely theirs. And if you start to do things that undermine that, that make you think, hang on, there's someone here that is pulling our site away from us and doing something we don't want, that can really get them irate. I mean, we made a terrible mistake. Farmers Weekly has had a forum for a long time, and they initially built it on a free platform that we got off the shelf and plugged in and started going. And then we decided, as we often do, we could do this a lot better. We could build our own forum and have all the bells and whistles that we particularly want. And we did it without really involving the audience in it. So all of a sudden they found that their old forum had been switched off and this new one was switched on. And we weren't quite as crass as that, but it wasn't far from it. And not surprisingly, a whole bunch of them said, stuff you've just, it was our community, our forum, you've just taken it away from us. We're not going to go where you want us to go. And they went off and set up their own forum called the British Farming Forum, I think, which is now our biggest competitor online. So you have to be really careful and understand that it works. If you want them to participate, you have to give up a lot of the ownership and allow them to take control of it. And actually, if you want to be really successful, you want that to happen. You want them to feel ownership and take responsibility for it.